now, man.
Let's do it. Let's do it in the new year.
Bienvenue. Welcome once again to another Cladding Matters, a weekly show where we talk about everything from remediation to what is being held back by the very fact that this situation arises. Do you know, there's sometimes where you wake up and you think you're stuck in that kind of Groundhog Day situation. Every time I look, it just feels like we're not moving forward. It's just very irritating. But anyway, enough of my orange box standing. Let's talk about today's topic. A closer look at expertise, oversight, and the BSR. Hamish, would you care to start us off?
Oh, right. It seems as I've got the wrong information before me. But what we do need to actually sort of look at is a number of people who are sort of demanding that we do need to speed up these cladding issues. And I think what we saw with Hong Kong last week, which although there were additional concerns with what happened in Hong Kong, we still have that dual standard of manufacture or build, I should say, that right. Constructors can choose to build something which is unsafe, whilst those of them who don't construct these things, those that live in them, the fire chiefs and people of this particular sort of nature, they consider them to be unsafe. And more importantly, it goes against what the bankers, what the lenders. I mean, as a lender, would you really want to be lending money against something which could still go up in flames? And so whilst we continue with the standard of remediation, which is considered to be acceptable, this past 9980, I don't think we're in a particularly sort of a healthy position, either for the residents, certainly unhealthy for the residents, having to worry about that particular aspect, but also the costs. The costs are not going to change. 2 years imprisoned in your shroud to have your property remediated, only to come back and to see daylight, full daylight again, to have exactly the same costs imposed upon you, and actually no payment from the people that caused this problem in the first place. It really is a sort of damning process altogether. How on earth can the builders continue to get away with it?
Well, it blows me, I'm afraid. It blows my mind that in the face of obvious ridiculousness, they still persist. Steve, how can this be?
Well, I mean, the problem we've got in this country is building regulations, aren't being followed. And so even improving the building regulations aren't going to necessarily improve the compliance, because it's still up to the builder whether they keep to them or not. And, so that's why we've always argued that we need to make them liable, or the lead contractor liable, or their parent companies if they use temporary companies like special purpose vehicles, with the construction industry levy backstop, for those builders that are no longer around for legacy building projects. So we've always said liability is the key, because only big money seems to really change things. And I think that's been the very difficult journey I've been on over the last 5 years, is that, the moral thing is pretty obvious. If someone creates a dangerous building that will put your life at risk, you'd expect the country would make them pay in full, and also wouldn't really require you to spend £500,000 to access justice through the courts to make them do it. So, that was where we started. And, you've come on this journey, both of you, over this last year and a half now on planning.
If I had any hair in the beginning, it would be long gone now.
Yeah.
But what I want to say is, we often come back to this comparison with the automotive industry, and often do because of Hamish's long background within that industry as well. If you sell someone a car and it's shown convincingly by many experts to be not fit for purpose, you go back to the manufacturer, or usually, and Hamish backed me up on this, they're recalled.
Oh, yes.
You know,
Yeah.
it's common. It's normal. It's it's assumed that's what will happen. And here we have what is often the largest single purchase made by any person in their lifetime is their domicile, and you're buying something which is inherently risky, has been shown to be so by myriads of experts, and yet they persist in effectively bouncing the cost of remediation and such like back to the homeowner. Steve, this is mindless.
Well, that's right, and I mean, as our topic today is the building safety regulator, you know, it converges around what we class as safe building, and there's two processes that are really flying into the government's focus, because of course they've got their 1.5 million homes that they want to build, and you know, those areas may well involve high density residential areas where flats are really the only option because of the ground availability. And so there's the Gateway 2 process, which means you've got to submit a set of drawings before the building is constructed to prove that you meet the building regulations. And also for cladding projects and refurbishment projects, remediation projects, it still goes through that process where they have to get their dodgy PAS 9980 approved by the building safety regulator remediation. And that's a Gateway 2. And then at Gateway 3, that's after the building's built. It's the final sort of inspection to see if it's met regs. Now, there's some calls from the construction industry to get rid of Gateway 2 altogether and push the Gateway 2 and Gateway 3 to the end, the process, after the building's built. So you can imagine the pressure on the building control or the building safety regulator.
Right.
Oh, block of flats built, and now you're going to tell us it's not built, right? Now you see. So getting rid of Gateway 2 and moving it to Gateway 3 is a dangerous thing, and that's being considered at the moment.
I'll tell you what, it's a gateway to. It's a gateway to madness, because
Gateway to liability shifting.
Yes. And obviously so.
But let me just tell you the reform. So the Ministry of Housing and Local Government put on their website the 30th of June 25, so a while back this year, but halfway through the year. They want a new fast-track process to the building safety regulator to enhance the review of new build applications. Unblock delays. That's danger, right? Unless it's done properly. Measures will help delivery of the 1.5 million safe, high-quality homes and speed up remediation. Here we go. End our long-standing remediations by speeding up. But remember the dodgy PAS 99 standard. So we don't want substandard, dangerous remediations being sped up. So that's a worry. And then the final thing they want to do is reforms to pave the way for the creation of a single construction regulator, as recommended by the Grenfell inquiry. And of course, the non-executive chair now of the building safety regulator has moved from the health and safety executive to the London Fire Brigade ex-commissioner, Andy Rowe. And basically the non-executive chair, Andy Rowe, basically said that the creation of the new building safety regulator is a watershed moment for housing and construction in this industry. However, it is also clear that the BSR processes need to continue to evolve and improve to ensure that it plays its part in enabling the homes of the country to be built.
Hang on a moment. Have they miraculously created new technology, which is therefore going to make some of these processes necessarily faster? Have they somehow have they improved the process by making it better and more solid and safer? It seems to me that the only way they could speed it up is by removing or doing less, not doing more. And the only way they can do, maybe they're going to bring in another ministry of silly walks, perhaps, to try and improve the speed at which this is done.
Well, what they don't need to, because what they're doing is the ministry is pushing the risk onto the consumer, and this is the problem. And what PAS is being what PAS does is it says you've got a set of regulations that should have been followed, but it doesn't matter if you follow this watered down standard, and it's highly subjective. and the building safety regulators involved in signing these off. And of course, the Royal Artillery Key story, that's my development, is all about that. Their building safety regulator approved a remediation plan to keep Euro Class C, the second most combustible material in Europe, on the 16-story single escape stairs of 8 blocks of flats in Greenwich. And that tells you all you need to know about what's going on. And then just a point on the fire brigade. So we had trouble even getting the fire brigade to issue an enforcement notice because they didn't put fire doors at the base of each staircase. They should.
Hang on, that's crazy. Surely it's the one place they need to be. Otherwise, you end up with fire traveling up and down the shaft.
Well, the plans also had those on, so it wasn't just a failure to keep to building regulations. It was a failure to even keep to the plans. And so I had to argue the fire brigade, who dismissed my concerns initially, and then would only do a notice of deficiency. And then when I kept on and on and on to the assistant commissioner, then they reluctantly issued an enforcement notice, which Greenwich Council told me that would be appealed and would be nullified, and it never was. But then the fire brigade refused to. This is just for one of the 8 buildings, and they all are missing the fire doors at the base of each staircase. There are no more enforcement notices or notice of deficiencies yet, and we've been chasing for 8 months, 9 months. So now that's bad for us here at Royal Artillery Keys, because it might mean now we don't get those other 7 buildings fixed properly. Even at the base of each staircase, we're only going to get one. And we've also, it's very public, so the insurers know that the other 7 staircases aren't safe, so they're going to whack up the insurance even more on top of the XPS panels and potentially the internals. So if that's the view of an assistant commissioner, then my concern about Mr. Rowe is that he will also take the same view, that you need to manage the truth of the matter, that with 77% defect rates in blocks of flats for Taylor Wimpey, going down to 35% for Barratt, that's top 4 massive house builders in this country in that range of life-endangering defect rates. The fire brigade knows that and has accepted that, in their view, that that's acceptable. We need to manage not the issues, but the people in the flats. And we push the liability back, and we deny the enforcement notice. We deny the notice of deficiency. This is the same person now in charge of the building safety regulator.
Hang on, Steve. This to me sounds like they're accepting that loss of life is acceptable. So here's my question. What level of loss of life should be acceptable? Because I thought 0 was the acceptable amount.
Well, PAS itself is very interesting. It says it shouldn't be used if the objective of a remediation is 0 risk to life. It actually says that in the standards definition. So if you go to it, you can actually see a very nasty sort of set of
I cannot see how in a modern society that pride ourselves on having a welfare state, well, there's no welfare here. And not only that, I just wanted to say all of this activity, I could sort of see it coming from the Tories, but from Labour, they're supposed to be promoting and supporting people, supporting a society. This seems to be, look, I'll lift the carpet here, you brush it under there.
Well, have a look at this. So this is what the PAS standard says. Okay, so this is actually the published standard that you can download. And it says, for some stakeholders, there is no appetite to consider a risk-based approach, i.e. most people, right? And for these stakeholders, the only satisfactory outcome is certainty in the performance of external walls in fire. Wouldn't you want that?
I would have thought that would be normal.
Well, and they're almost mocking us. They say, well, 0 risk to life is the principal objective. The methodology in this PAS cannot be applied where 0 risk to life is the principal objective. It is therefore assumed that the PAS will only be used in circumstances where a risk-based approach implemented by competent professionals
Right.
acceptable to relevant interested parties. So they're basically saying that and it's not saying you eliminate risk to life, it said the principal objective shouldn't be eliminating risk to life. So
well, hang on a moment. I thought the word safety means not to have risk to life. I mean, Hamish, this appears to be nonsense. I mean, who builds a building thinking, well, it's okay if we got a 10% of potential for someone to die?
Well, when one looks at, I think we can look at the water board here, and we can say about the water boards, particularly Thames Water, that the content is free of charge. It comes descending from above, yet somehow between descending from above and getting out there, the amount of damage and pollution caused by this free water is absolutely appalling. Now, the thing is if I was an author, I would like information like this to come to me so I could base my new book upon that. And in actual fact, somebody wrote, in fact, there's been hundreds of books built on sort of various ships going into icebergs for one reason or another, and who was responsible for that in the end, and what brought that about. Now, when you actually look at this particular, we have a property which has been built at the time. Whoever was regulating this build, they weren't regulating the build. Whether it was the quality of the regulating, I'm not so sure. But they certainly weren't regulating, because, as we've had demonstrated on just one subject today, there weren't fire doors that should have been built. So they got it wrong. The builders got it wrong. They got it wrong. Now, when we actually look right the way through the whole history of this, all of a sudden, regulators who took a look at it, which in actual fact, those regulators, the building regulators from the council itself, look, hey, hang on, this wasn't built the right way. Yet somehow the council, with all of its wondrous sort of expertise, they're so knowledgeable, quite where they did their training, I don't know. There's nothing wrong with these fire shafts without fire doors, or the fact that they've got, they don't have fire resistant sort of glass in them and things like that, of that particular sort of nature. And there's all of these other challenges with all of these other faults within the. Look at all those wondrous things you can bring into your story. You don't need imagination, because somebody's put all of those things before you to say this is seriously dangerous, and to just decide that, well, yeah, we know it's dangerous. We know that people are going to get killed. We know that the fire protection, and all of a sudden we say, well, no, we don't want an independent fire regulator. That's the last thing we want, because we want to be able to have a watered down situation, an incompetent MHCLG, and we know all of the things they're trying to do. They've just got too much on them, but could bring somebody inside of that, under that same umbrella, and somebody who has limited capabilities. They are not construction engineers. They do not know the full thing about the construction. Surely they could look at the fire doors, but all the internal compartmentalization, that's an engineer. So this is so damaging, right? It doesn't matter which way we look at it. And to actually suggest somebody is harassing the authorities because they keep bringing this particular subject up is absolutely absurd. It should be plain in the face. Somebody should be able to turn and say, I understand exactly what you're saying, but we're not going to do that. We're going to do this instead. But no, they're trying to blame the people who are trying to explain. It's the messenger. They are trying to shoot the messenger. It's about time they shot the perpetrators.
Steve, it seems to me that what we're talking about, what we've been talking about from the beginning, is about creating an environment where building safety is considered not a try hard to have, but more a must have. And to me, building safety should be an attempt to stop people dying. That your home should be a place you can rest your head and not wake up fearful in the middle of the night that something has gone terribly wrong. That should be a bare minimum. Am I so far away from the fact?
Well, I think what's sad is most people assume that's the case. I think when you buy somewhere, you assume that the system will protect you to some level, and if there are issues, that it's the builder that fixes them. And I think what we've seen is the entire apparatus of the country is pushing the liability onto you, because they accept, including the fire brigade, including everyone, that the builders could never keep to the laws that they're doing. And they say that what they're really saying to everyone is, you have to pay the rest. The builders will do half or a third or whatever, and you pay for the rest, and that's it. It's a kind of pushing the risk back onto the consumer, and the builder can get away then with whatever it likes. And yes, the Building Safety Act has improved things, but my worry is that we're getting to a place now where we've got leasehold reform coming,
Right.
and leasehold reform has got a very ugly side to all of this, because leasehold reform, if we go to common hold, will mean that Schedule 8 of the Building Safety Act is destroyed, because if you push the freeholders out the market with peppercorn ground rent, then there is no freeholders to pay for the remediation, and yet the leaseholders don't pay either, so they're left in limbo. Now, what you'll hear from campaigners for leasehold abolition is that it will solve all your problems. Well, it will certainly create more problems for those reliant on freeholders to be solvent and they want their remediations done. But two, there's a fire safety order where the right to manage company will be responsible legally for all the defects and all the work that needs to be done. And there's some very disturbing advice coming out of Australia called based on a system called Strata, which is a similar type of common hold arrangement, where they're making the flat owners joint and severally liable for all the defects. So what that means is not only you have to pay for your 50,000 building defect bill, but you have to pay for all your neighbours as well that don't pay. So you're not just liable for your own flat, you're liable for everyone else's. And unless you can get them to pay, and because there's no freeholder, you're going to have to go and knock those doors for the 50 grand each. Thank you very much. And if any don't pay, you're liable for the rest, along with all the people that have paid. So, this is what's coming out. And, what we're arguing for is consumer protection, because it doesn't just affect leasehold, but it will affect common hold being viable, frankly. So this has huge ramifications on actual housing tenure and the ability to actually, go to common hold if that's what people wish. So these are huge issues. And of course, finally, you've got value write-downs. We've had £350,000 flat going for 200 grand here at Royal Artillery Quays. Imagine using £150,000 because you just want to sell your flat. And that's happening around the country. You've got huge service charges, and we're going up to about 7,800 now a year at Royal Artillery Quays, and it's going to keep going up because the insurance is going to hit. In the end, flats will not be viable. You just will not want to buy a flat. And
well, it's already fairly onerous. Loads of flats are tied up in this whole building safety nightmare. Hamish, we've got to bring this to a close, unfortunately, today. But Hamish, would you kindly have the last word?
Well, I think we do definitely need to keep going on, and until something changes in the whole matter, because there is insufficient notice being taken of a very unacceptable, watered down standard, which has been introduced for the benefit of the builders, for the benefit of the profit makers, the profiteers in all of this. It's been put there for their benefit in a way that the government can hide behind the general safety issues. So the government and councils, particularly, councils supporting this weakening standard, which is allowed to perpetuate. And in none of this within the remediation, nor the bill which they're trying to push through like or get out, nobody is looking at how are we going to regulate the safety issues. The biggest and the most important thing to be done in all of this is an independent safety regulator that can oversee, that does not have any financial interest either in government or building, who can actually, this is unsafe for people who live there. It should not happen.
Regulations without teeth are pointless regulations indeed, without having an independent body to make sure that what has been going on, as we discussed before, where builders and so on have been marking their own homework, that cannot carry on, and it needs to be something so that there's confidence. Otherwise, as Steve said quite rightly, eventually flats will no longer be a viable option. We've got so many flats that are stuck in this situation. If Wendy was here, she has said many times, part of the main reason why it's so hard to get onto the property ladder is lack of availability of sensible, safe, easily insured at sensible cost properties. My flabber is truly ghastly. Thank you everyone involved. Steve Day, ongoing, trying to get building safety regulations changed for the better, working with Lord Lytton to do exactly that. And Hamish McClay, Lord Master, whose brainchild this all was. Without him, we wouldn't have this platform to push out on. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Hamish. And to all of you watching, I saw a whole bunch of you turn up halfway through. Thank you for taking the time out to watch this. We're striving to get properties that are safe legally and not just done with a bit of spit and polish. We want something that's truly safe. I don't understand why that is difficult for those in power to get their head around. We're not looking for anything that is unreasonable. We're looking for people to have a safe place to lay their head. I mean, my goodness, it's wrapping them in a product which is akin to firelighters doesn't, to my simple mind, appear to be achieving that goal. And the refusal to remove it, or even the willingness to water down a safety standard that allows for it to be left, allows for more corners to be cut in the interest of quicker house building, appears to be tail wagging the dog. Anyway, enough of my ranting. I'll get off my orange box. Thank you once and again for everybody watching. Please try and stay safe. And in these troubled times, please look towards your mental health. Until next week, goodbye.
There's a tale about some folks with hammers and some nails. They'll polish through the moon, but their word always fails.